calm before Christmas. The morning sun on December 24th painted the city in soft golden light, casting a warm glow over New York's snow-covered streets. Emerald walked slowly, savoring each breath of the crisp winter air. His heart was light, brimming with joy and gratitude, as he reflected on the miraculous path that had led him here. To August, to love, and to a world he'd only dreamed of back in December's Edge. As he walked past the bar where he'd first met August, he stopped, looking up at the familiar sign. The memory filled him with a warmth that no winter chill could touch. He smiled to himself, pushing open the door to peek inside, and just as he was about to move on, he heard something he could hardly believe. "Emerald!" A high-pitched voice cut through the sounds of bustling streets and clinking glasses, freezing him in his tracks. He turned, eyes wide with shock. There, standing with her hands on her hips and a pout on her lips, was his little sister, Lucy. "Lucy!" he gasped, his voice barely more than a whisper. "Yes, it's me, silly," she replied, her voice tight with a mix of relief and frustration. "Do you have any idea how hard it was to find you?" They embraced tightly, and Emerald's mind whirled with questions. How? How did you get here? And why? Lucy's eyes filled with determination. "I'll explain everything. Let's go inside." They returned to the bar, sitting at the very spot where Emerald had met August just weeks before. The familiarity of the space grounded Emerald as Lucy began her story of how she found him, long-lost histories of December's Edge. Chapter 14, A Chilling Tale. Lucy sipped her hot chocolate, staring into its swirling depths as she chose her words carefully. "After you left December's Edge, everyone was in a panic. People searched for days, trying to understand how you'd vanished." Emerald's heart tightened with guilt, but he let her continue. "I spent hours in the library, searching through the oldest, most ancient books. Then I found it, the history of December's Edge and why we're not supposed to leave." She paused, her face pale. "Emerald, did you know the story of the frozen statue in the square?" Emerald shook his head. "Just that it's been there forever, a part of our little village. I never thought much about it." Lucy leaned forward, her voice dropping to a whisper. "The statue is Santa Claus. He was once like us, just a regular young man from December's Edge. Long ago, he left to find happiness in the real world. He spent 24 days here, bringing joy and magic. But he stayed too long. On the night of the 24th, his body froze, unable to survive past the boundaries of December's magic. His body frozen in the town square of December's Edge forever. Now, only his spirit can travel, visiting people every December, bringing them gifts like he did when he was alive, but he can't truly ever return home." Emerald's skin prickled with fear. "So if I stay, you'll freeze too," Lucy finished, her voice trembling. "You'll become a statue, like him, forever stuck between two worlds." "I came to find you because time is running out, Emerald. You have to come back with me before midnight tonight, or..." She didn't finish her sentence. Emerald sat in stunned silence, the weight of her words sinking in. He imagined himself frozen, a silent statue in the square, a grim reminder of what happens when you wander too far from December's Edge. He thought of his life there, of Lucy and his family, and then of August, the man who'd shown him a world of laughter, love, and warmth he'd never known. "But I have to say goodbye to August," he murmured, standing up suddenly, his pulse pounding. Lucy grabbed his arm. "There's no time." "I can't leave without telling him the truth," he insisted. "Please, Lucy, I'll meet you here in an hour, I promise." Reluctantly, she nodded, and Emerald dashed from the bar, his heart racing, hoping he could make it back in time. Chapter 15, Truth Hurts. Emerald's heart raced as he bolted toward August's apartment. Each second felt precious, slipping through his fingers like sand. When he reached the door, he barely managed to catch his breath before knocking. Moments later, August opened it, his face lighting up when he saw him, only for his expression to fall when he saw Emerald's distress. "Emerald, what's wrong?" August asked, worry clouding his face as he guided him inside. There's something I haven't told you." Emerald's voice cracked, but he forced himself to meet August's gaze. I'm not from here. I'm from a place called December's Edge. It's a town that doesn't exist here, not in the way you know. It's always winter there, always December, and people there can only come here for the first 24 days of the month." He looked away, pain etched on his face. "After that, if we don't go back, we freeze." August stared at him, Blair, his face a mix of shock and disbelief. Emerald, what are you saying? Emerald swallowed hard. If I stay past midnight tonight, I'll turn to ice. I'll be gone. The finality of his words hit him, his heart sinking as he watched the realization dawn on August's face. But there has to be another way, August whispered, stepping closer, his hands trembling as he reached for Emerald. Can't you stay just one more day? What if I went with you? Emerald shook his head, his heart shattering. You'd never survive there. December's Edge is no place for anyone from here. It would trap you, change you. His voice broke as he tried to hold back tears. I have to go. August's face crumpled as he pulled Emerald into a tight embrace, their shared silence filled with unspoken words. Neither of them wanted to let go. Chapter 16, A Promise. They lingered in each other's arms, both fighting the reality pressing down on them. Finally, August pulled back, brushing a tear from Emerald's cheek. Then promise me one thing, August whispered, his voice breaking. Come back to me. Next December, the 1st of the month. I'll be here, waiting. Emerald nodded, his voice too thick with emotion to speak. I promise? They shared one last kiss, slow and bittersweet, every second stretching into eternity. Each touch, each whispered word was a goodbye, a desperate attempt to capture the time they had left. The world outside felt frozen, suspended, as if all of New York held its breath. Finally, Emerald pulled away, looking into August's tear-streaked face. Thank you for everything, he said softly, his heart heavy with words he couldn't express. August forced a smile, his fingers lingering on Emerald's. I'll keep the cocoa warm, and I'll be waiting right here. Emerald nodded, his chest aching as he turned and walked out the door, carrying August's memory like a secret flame. Chapter 17, Tugging the Edge. Emerald found Lucy waiting at the bar, her eyes red from tears she'd tried to hide. Without a word, she took his hand, leading him toward the back room. The bar felt like it was holding its breath too, the festive lights and laughter now a hollow echo. Lucy opened a door hidden behind a stack of old boxes, a door he'd never noticed before. A faint glow emanated from it, familiar yet strange, like a distant memory tugging at him. This is the way back, she whispered, her face tight with worry. It'll take us straight to December's Edge. Emerald nodded, glancing back one last time, hoping for a glimpse of August. But all he saw were strangers, lost in their own holiday reverie. His heart ached as he turned back, stepping into the doorway with Lucy by his side. The world around them shifted, the bright lights of New York replaced by the cold, familiar gray of December's Edge. Snow fell softly, the town square empty, save for the shadow of the statue standing in the center, its eyes forever frozen in a distant gaze. Chapter 18, Frozen in Time. The reality of his return weighed on Emerald as he and Lucy walked through the empty streets. Everything felt the same, but he knew he was changed, that the world he had left would never leave him. As they neared their home, Lucy spoke, her voice low. You really loved him, didn't you? Emerald swallowed, nodding. More than anything. They stopped in the square, gazing up at the statue of Santa Claus, his face forever young, forever looking toward a world he could no longer reach. The story of the man who had stayed too long, who had left a part of himself behind, resonated deeply now, a warning but also a strange comfort. I'll go back, Lucy, he whispered. Next December. If he's there, I'll find a way. Lucy's face softened, but a sad flicker filled her eyes, and she squeezed his hand. I believe you. Just don't be sad when August has moved on. You know life goes on. The snow continued to fall, blanketing December's Edge, quiet and cold, but in Emerald's heart a flame still flickered, bright and warm, waiting for next December's promise. Chapter 19, A Year Without Color. December's Edge had always been cold and snowy, but this year for Emerald, it felt especially bleak. Everything he once enjoyed, the laughter with friends at the Golden Apple Tavern, the smell of fresh bread in his bakery, the festive glow of the holiday decorations, had lost its magic. His thoughts returned again and again to August, whose warmth had brightened his life for that single month, then vanished like a beautiful dream. Every day his heart ached a little more. As the end of November approached, a spark of hope began to flicker within him. Only a few days remained before he could return to the real world, to New York, to August. Emerald began counting the hours, filling his mind with the anticipation of seeing August smile, feeling his arms around him once more. Yet with every joyful thought came an undercurrent of doubt. What if August has moved on? he wondered. What if he's forgotten me? On the morning of December 1st, he was up at dawn, pacing in front of the Golden Apple, waiting for Lucy to meet him. His sister arrived, her face a mixture of support and concern. "Are you ready?" she asked, her gaze steady but worried. "Remember, things might not be exactly as you left them." Emerald took a deep breath, nodding as he turned toward the door with the mistletoe wreath. The familiar glow of its green leaves comforted him, but he couldn't shake Lucy's words from his mind. What awaited him on the other side? With a deep breath, he touched the mistletoe wreath, and the door shimmered open, filling his vision with blinding light. Chapter 20, s'il vous plaît. As Emerald stepped through, the lights, sounds, and warmth of a bustling bar surrounded him. For a moment, he felt relief. He'd made it. But something felt off. The bar looked different from how he remembered it. Bright, almost tacky decorations covered the walls in garish reds and greens. Emerald's brow furrowed. This wasn't the cozy, dimly lit bar in New York where he'd first met August. A waiter approached him, speaking in a language Emerald didn't recognize at first. The sound felt strange yet familiar, and suddenly it clicked. "French! Where am I?" he asked, his voice rising with panic. The waiter raised an eyebrow, chuckling. "Paris, of course! You're in the city of love, monsieur!" Emerald's heart sank. Paris? He remembered August mentioning Paris once, a city he dreamed of visiting. But Paris was far from New York, and without money or resources, how could he get there, see August, and return in time to avoid freezing solid? Suddenly, he felt something in his pocket, an envelope wrapped in deep red paper. Frowning, he pulled it out and opened it, revealing crisp bills and a note scrawled in elegant handwriting, "Fly safely, Santa Claus." Emerald's heart raced. Could this be some kind of Christmas miracle? With fresh hope, he raced through the bustling Paris streets toward the airport, clutching the envelope like a lifeline. He caught the next flight to New York, the hum of the plane's engine blending with his heartbeat as he envisioned his reunion with August. Chapter 21, A Shadow in Time. When he finally arrived in New York, Emerald made his way directly to the bar where they'd first met. His heart raced as he pushed open the door, his eyes scanning the familiar dim space for August. But the bar was empty, save for a few strangers laughing and chatting at the counter. Emerald waited, his eyes glued to the door, hope slowly fading as the hours slipped by. He told himself that August would appear any moment, that he was just running late. But as evening turned to night, reality began to sink in. August wasn't coming. Emerald returned to the bar each day, arriving early and staying late. He sat at their usual spot, ordering cups of coffee he barely touched, watching the door with a quiet desperation. Day after day, December wore on, and still there was no sign of August. His mind filled with doubts, whispers that August had moved on, found someone else, or perhaps he'd simply forgotten. "I waited all year," he thought miserably, a hollowness filling his chest. Maybe he didn't feel the same way. Chapter 22, A Scent of Snow. By December 13th, Emerald had all but given up hope. That morning, he sat at the bar once more, his heart heavy with disappointment. He wrapped his fingers around a mug of cold coffee, staring into its depths, wondering if he'd imagined the connection he'd felt with August. But then, the door swung open, and a gust of cold air swept in, carrying the scent of snow. Emerald looked up, and his heart stopped. There, standing in the doorway, was August, his coat dusted with snowflakes, his cheeks pink from the cold. Their eyes met, and in that instant, every ounce of doubt and sorrow melted away. Emerald bolted from his seat, stumbling as he ran toward August. He crashed into him, throwing his arms around him, barely able to hold back tears. "August, I thought you'd forgotten about me," he choked out. August held him tightly, his face buried in Emerald's hair. "Emerald, I was here on the 1st, I waited for you. But then my mother passed away, and I had to leave to be with my family. I didn't know if I'd ever see you again." Emerald's heart clenched with sympathy and relief. "I ended up in Paris," he explained, pulling back to meet August's gaze. "The door led me there instead of New York. I spent every day trying to get back to you." August's brow furrowed, realization dawning on him. The door. It must open to a different place each year. They stared at each other, the enormity of it sinking in. This was a miracle, yes, but also a limitation. Each year, they would only have 1 month together, and each time, they would have to search for each other in a new city, a new bar. Chapter 23, Pinky Promises. Emerald and August spent the rest of December basking in each other's presence, exploring the snowy streets of New York, watching Christmas lights sparkle in the cold air, and sharing whispered conversations over warm cups of cocoa. But always, the shadow of their separation lingered, the knowledge that their time was limited. One evening, as they walked hand in hand through a quiet park, Emerald looked up at August, his expression serious. "I'll come back every December, no matter where the door leads me," he said firmly. "But what if one year we can't find each other?" August pulled him close, pressing a gentle kiss to his forehead. "Then we'll find a way, no matter what. I'll be waiting, always, and if we're ever apart," he held out his pinky finger, "then promise me you'll find me, that we'll find each other." Emerald wrapped his own pinky around August's, sealing their promise. "I promise." Chapter 24, December's Always. As December 31st approached, they both dreaded the inevitable farewell. They stayed up late each night, savoring every moment, as if the clock might stop for them. But soon, the final night arrived, and Emerald felt a familiar pull in his heart, the call to return to December's edge. Standing at the edge of the mistletoe-framed door, they held each other tightly, neither wanting to let go. August's eyes were full of unshed tears as he whispered, "Until next December." Emerald nodded, his heart breaking and mending all at once. Until next December. With one last lingering kiss, he stepped through the door, feeling the world shift around him. The warmth of New York replaced by the chill of December's edge. The months without August were still difficult, but now the promise of their yearly reunion gave Emerald a joy and strength he hadn't known before. He carried it with him through every snowfall, every long winter night, and each December the door took him to new places: Rome, Tokyo, London, Amsterdam. Every year they found each other again, meeting in a new city and sharing another month of love and laughter, of midnight promises and whispered dreams. For the rest of the year, Emerald lived with a contentment he had never known, his heart filled with anticipation, counting the days until December returned and the door once again opened to lead him to his beloved. A love that defies time. And so it was that Emerald and August lived a life of love across worlds. They became legends in both December's edge and beyond, a story of two souls defying the boundaries of space and time to be together. For as long as there was a December, they would always find each other, no matter where, no matter how far. Because sometimes love doesn't need a lifetime. Sometimes a month each year is enough to last forever.